So this is the end result, what we're aiming for today, and this is just adding materials. Okay, so let's continue from yesterday by setting the scene. So we start up by adding a floor. So let's press Shift A, Mesh, Plane, and then scale it up a lot. And then we can look it from the side and just press G and Z to bring it down somewhere here. Great. And now we can set our camera to move the elf where we want it. And then we press Ctrl Alt 0 on the numpad. So this is what the camera will render. And we want to see the whole figurine. So let's press G and Z. Now we can drag out until we see the whole thing like this. Great. And now we can just press G, and I want it a little bit to the right, like that. Great. And now we can take the plane and press R, and I only want to rotate it in Z axis, like that. Great. And now we can enter edit mode by pressing tab, and we press 2 only to select the edges. And we can select this edge and press E to extrude, and upwards by pressing Z. Like this. And right now we have a really hard edge over here. We want to change this, so we can just select this edge again. And I want to bevel it. So let's press Ctrl B and drag. And then we can use our scroll wheel to add more bevels like this. Great. And now we can right click and choose Shade Auto Smooth. And now I have a nice edge behind the elf. Okay, next step I think is to add some lights. So let's press Shift A and go down to light and area light. And we can move it towards us. So press G and X, and we need to rotate it. So we can press R to rotate it, and I only want to rotate it around the Y axis. So we can just right 90 degrees like that. I want to scale it up a little bit, and we can drag it out of the camera, and I want to move it up a bit like that. Great. Let's change our viewport shading by pressing Z, holding it down, and go to rendered. Right now it's only this light from the front, and if we go to this camera, the render, I actually want to do a cycle render. So change this, and I want to use the GPU if you have that, and we can change the viewport max samples to 150 and do the same for the render. That should be enough. Great. And now if we go to the lights, let's just see the scene here. We have the button with the collection, and in that collection we have everything. We want to change this. So let's select the camera, the plane, and that light and that light. I select them by holding down Control, and now we can press M and choose a new collection, and let's call this one Scene. And I don't want this light, the light that is there from the beginning, so just delete this. And now it's much darker. So let's select this light, and we can see it's only 10 watts. So let's make it a lot more, so maybe 2000. And it's too bright, maybe 500. Yeah, this looks better. We can actually start at 300 like that. And let's change the color to something with a little more yellow in it. Okay, now I want light from this side and a light from behind almost. So, and the easiest way to do this is if we press R now to rotate this will just rotate around its own point. But now I want it to rotate around this point, the 3D cursor, and actually I want it to rotate around the center point. So let's press Shift C, and this will center the 3D cursor to the center of the scene. And if we now select this part, we can just press numpad dot, and it will zoom into that part. Great. And if we select this light again, and then we go here and choose 3D cursor instead, and if you now rotate, this will rotate around the 3D cursor. So that's great. So we can now press Shift D to duplicate this, right click, and now it's in the exact same spot as the other one. And we can press R and Z to rotate only around the Z axis. We can put it here. And we do the same thing again. And press Shift D and R and Z and from behind, something like that. And if we now look in the camera, we can see that this one, I actually want to rotate it a little bit upwards. Maybe like that. Great. So let's start changing the color. So we select this light. I want it to be bluish, and you can see we get a little bit blue here. And this one, I want it to be even warmer than the other one. Something like that. Great. So now we have some kind of scene and light setup. So it's great. So let's save it. And always remember to save from time to time so you don't lose your work if your computer crashes or something like that. Great. And now we want to add the materials. So we can actually start out by selecting the head. And this will be our first material. So we go down to materials and we press new. And we can name this to skin. Great. And we go to the shading tab over here. Let's change this to render view as well. And camera. Great. We can drag it up like that. Okay, so first off, make sure that you have the add-on Node Wrangler activated. So just go to add-on, search for Node Wrangler and activate it. Great, because that will enable a lot of features that you will really benefit from. So let's select this one and press Ctrl T. And you will get all of this from the Node Wrangler. So we can just delete the image texture, but we still have the mapping and texture coordinate. And we can just drag the object to the mapping instead. And now I want to have a noise texture. So we take the vector and the vector. And if we now press Ctrl Shift left click, we can see what the noise texture is doing. So we want to change it. We want to drag up the scale somewhere around 20 maybe. And we also need more details somewhere here. And I want the roughness up to 1. And we can make some distortion as well, because we want the skin material to be kind of bad skin. And now we can drag this factor into base color, and we can press Ctrl Shift left click just to see how it looks. But we still don't have any colors, so we want to add a Shift A and search for the mix color. We put it here, and we want this factor to go into the factor, and I want the first color for skin to be some kind of pinkish, and the other color to be some kind of brownish, yellowish, somewhere here. And you can mix this color until you find a skin tone that you like. Great. We can drag them over here, and we have some structures in the skin. Great. And to add some contrast, we can actually add a color ramp. Put it here, and if we drag down the white, we get a little more contrast. Actually, I think we need to add a darker color to see more contrast also. So now we have skin, and you can see it's a rough skin. Great. So, and now I also want to add some texture to the skin. So let's add a Voronoi texture, put it here, and we can use the same mapping. We can drag it down here, and let's check on the Voronoi how it looks. So we need to lower the scale, I think, somewhere here, and I want the details to go to maybe 5. Great, just to have some speckles. And the roughness, we can drag it up to 0.9, 0.8, and then we can keep the other values, and I also want to add another noise texture. Let's put it here. And for this one, we can just drag up the scale to maybe 10, and then we take the details somewhere there, and then we take the roughness to point. Yeah, you decide how you think your skin should look, and a little bit of distortion. And we want this to be the bump, so let's add a bump node. This is the texture of the skin. And we drag this up to normal, and we can actually take the factor to the height, and we can just drag that away. And if we look upon it, let's press Ctrl, Shift and left click. We can see that it's kind of really rough. We don't want it, so let's lower the strength to maybe 0.375. Yeah, something like that. So now we have a skin with a bit of texture in it, and that's what we want. And what we need to do now is to add some kind of subsurface. Let's put the weight to 1, and then for the scale we need to take this value to, you can see how much light the skin is sending through. We don't want it to be that much, maybe just 0.5, yeah, 0.45. That looks kind of nice. Okay, so now we have the skin, but inside the mouth it should not be the same skin color, so we need to change that. So we can go to the materials and add another material, and let's go to edit mode. Let's press Alt, left clicks. Whoops. Let's change this to face select, and press Alt, left click. Then we can press Shift, Control, and we got all of them. Great. And then we can just choose skin again and press Assign. And now when we have this skin, we can just press this duplicate and call this skin dark. Great. So we can actually use the same setup, but we just make this a lot of darker. Like this. And exit edit mode, and now we have a mouth and the skin. Great. And if we want a funnier look to see the skin transparency even more, we can just press Alt, left click here, and maybe just press J and X and drag out the mouth a little bit. Yeah, that might look a little bit funnier. Okay, so next step is to make this some kind of fabric material. And the easiest way to do this is to go to this site, ambientcg.com, go to materials, and you can go to fabric. You can scroll down until you find the material you like. I like this one. And then you just download it. I download the 4K or the 2K. And then when you have downloaded it, just unzip it. And then you go to this part and press new. Let's call this fabric. You select the principal BSDF and press Ctrl Shift T. And now you go to the folder where you unzip the files, and you want to use the color, the displacement, the normal GL, well, most cases work, and the roughness. And you press that button, and it have laid out the material for you. This is great. So the only thing we want to change is the scale, and to do that, the easiest way is just to press Shift A and add a value node. Put it here and drag this to the scale. And now if we change the value, you can see we can easily choose how tight we want our pattern to be. And since this is an easy object, we don't need to care about the UV mapping right now, because I think this looks good from the beginning. Great. So now we have that material, and we also want to use this the same material for the hat, and we can actually call this fabric red 1. And for the hat we can use the same fabric. And what I realize now is that this will be easier because we're going to add some fuzz and stuff later on if we just separate the materials in the hat. So let's go to edit mode and let's press P and separate by loose part. So this is loose, we will lose that instantly, so that's not a part of the hat anymore. And if you take, and I want this also to go away, so we can press 3 to select facing, then press Alt, left click, and I also want to use these two, so press Shift, Alt, left click, left click, left click. And we can press P again, separate by selection. So now this is the only part that will have the fabric red. But right now it doesn't look good, and this is because this is not UV wrapped, so we need to do that, and I recommend that you go other tutorials that only focus on the UV editing to learn that. So, but we can press UV editing and see this, like you need to fold this part out like a paper. So I want the cut to be in somewhere we don't see it, so we can press 2, turn on edge select and press Alt left click. So we have this seam here. I want to cut here, so let's press right click and make mark seam. So now we told the program that okay, when you unwrap this, this is where the cut is going to be. Then press A to select everything, and then we can go to UV, unwrap, minimal stretch. Great. And let's scroll up here and just choose the material. And we can see that it's rotating in a strange way. The waves go like this. I don't want that, so let's select everything again. Go over here and press A to select everything. And now we can decide how we want this to look. So I want to rotate it. Actually, I want to rotate something like this. And if we now go back to layout, yeah, I think this looks good. Great. So now we have that fabric set up as well. And now I want to set the material for the buttons. So select the button, go to shading, and this is almost like glass material, so we press new. And in this case, we don't want the principle, so we delete that, and I want a glass BSDF. And we can drag that into the surface, and I want a color ramp. And this is what where I will set my colors, because I want this to be some kind of brownish with streaks of other brown color in it. You will see. We drag it over here, and I want the first color to be some kind of orange brown, like that. Take that code and go to this black one and paste that code, and oops, and I only want it to be a little bit darker, maybe more, something like that. Great. And now I actually want to add a wave texture, and if you put it over here, down here, and now we can press Control Shift left click, and we can see how the waves will work. So right now the scale is too big, so let's lower the scale down somewhere here. And the distortion, I want a lot of distortion, maybe around 16. And I also want more details. Great, somewhere here. And let's add this value as well. Great. And then can you just choose the face off to place this pattern. I actually think this is great. And notice when I change this, I will change this on both, because this is an instance, a copy of this one, but that will be okay. So if we press Control Shift left click over here, it's too dark, so we need to do something about this. So let's change the IR to 0.2, Okay, even darker, but we need some glossiness. So let's search for gloss. Put it here. And then you can press Ctrl Shift, right click, and we get a mix shader. Great. Right now you can see the factor full is gloss and this is only glass, like these two values. So we need to change this. The gloss, I think a good value is maybe 0.15, and I want something to control my factor, and a good way to do this is to press Shift A and search for layer weight. Drag it here, and let's take the Fresnel into here. Okay, great. I think it's a bit too dark still, and I think we need to add another glossy node. So let's search for Shift A and add another glossy, be SDF, and let's do as before, Control Shift, right click, drag it up, and we get another mix shader. And this time we really want to drag it down, like really low, somewhere here. And I think we need to fix this as well. Maybe if we set this to 0.05, it's too much. And let's just do the fine adjustment over here. Maybe drag this down to 0.254. Yeah, I think that looks good. Maybe I wanted to make this a little bit brighter. Yeah, a little more life to it. You decide how you want your elf to look. So yeah. Anyhow, so next thing is to work with the string. And let's do this one easy. Let's call this thread. And let's just add a noise texture. We can drag the factor into the base color. And let's scale this up. I just want to have some dirt on the string or thread. So this should be good. And let's just add color ramp. So I can decide the color of the string and the dirt. I want this to be some kind of yellow and not that dark. Yeah. You can see if I go with the blue, that doesn't look right, but we can drag this down and maybe. And then I want to add some kind of texture feeling to this as well. So let's just, we can add a wave texture. Let's press Ctrl T to add a mapping. You can take the object and to the vector. And then we can press Ctrl Shift left click. And I want this to be rotated a little bit. So let's fix this. That was the wrong way. Like that. Great. And then we just add a bump. This will not be perfect, but it will add a little feeling to the thread. So let's left click, right click. And we need to take this factor to the height, and this one we can take away. So we get some kind of, right now it's too much, but if you just drag it down, and from a distance this will look kind of okay. Great. So we just added material to the other threads. Great. Like that. Okay, and so the last material before adding the fuzz is this white. So we can go here, we can press the minus, and we press add a new material, press new, and we call this white hat. Great, and we select the ball and call this white hat as well. Okay, so now we actually have all our materials, and it's time to add the fuzz. So let's save. And then we can select this one, and we go over here to the particles, press the plus to add a new one, and let's call this just red fuzz. Great, and I want this to be hair, and we have hair all over the place. So I don't want the hair to be 4 meters long, so let's drag it down to something really, really short. Maybe 0.07. Great. And I think the segment will look good, but we want more hairs and we want some life to them. So let's open up children and choose interpolated. And we want this value to be higher. So maybe set this to 200 and this to 200 as well. And this is a lot of fuzz. But when we go to, and right now every hair is just going straight out. And I want it to be more roughness. So we go down and change this random value. Things will start to happen. And as you can see, it started to get a little more random. So let's take this value up to maybe 86. I think it's too much, and I think too many hairs, and I think they are too long as well. So we need to fix that, and we can actually change the length of them by changing this value at the children as well. Let's just drag it down to maybe 0.4, and let's just select left click and drag and just change this maybe to 100. I don't want that much, and maybe instead we can change this value to maybe 500, something like that. Some fuzz. That looks good, I think. And then we go up to this, the hat, and go to particles, press plus, and then we can actually use the same as before, red fuzz. And we have some fuzz here as well. And the last step is to add some fuzz to the white, but this one we want to be bigger fuzz. So let's press plus, let's call this white fuzz. And let's do it as before. Let's select hair, and let's change the length to something really low, maybe 0.2. And then we need to change the children, interpolated. And we can change this to maybe, this time we can try 200. And something is wrong. It only goes in one direction. Let's check the face orientation. So let's open up here, face orientation, and we can see that, okay, both this part and this part is facing wrong way. So let's select them, go to edit mode, press A to select everything, and then press Shift N to change that, and then select this one as well. Tab, press A to select everything, and then press Shift N. Great. So now we leave this face orientation mode, and we can see, okay, this is too long, and it also seemed to be a lot of hair. So we need to change this somewhere here, and then change this to 500, and we can change the length as well, drag it down maybe 0.5. And then we can just add some roughness, not much, but a little bit. Great. And the last step is this ball needs to have some particles also. Let's press plus, and then just choose white fuzz. We have the same fuzz over here. And now we're pretty much done. So if you go to layout and we press the camera, so this will be what we render out. I still think we need to change the floor. So let's just select it and press new. And I just want it to be some kind of copper material, something easy. And we can just do it from here and just full metallic. And add a little more reflection by lowering the roughness. And if you now press F12, we are done. And what you can do now is just to try stuff with the lighting and see if you want more or less. Good tips is to name them. So this might be the front light. And maybe I want it to be a little more like that. And this one, I want to be colder, but also more. And you can just try out until you find what you like. So this is how you do a Christmas elf. Thanks for watching. And if you like stuff like this, please like and subscribe. Bye. Bye.